Hey everyone, welcome to the Masto Fitness Podcast. Today in episode 3, we're going to talk about the importance of strength training and the type of strength training you need to do as a racer. So this is a quick hit podcast, and we're going to keep them short and to the point, focusing on the things you can do off the bike to race faster and safer. At Masto Fitness, we work with racers remotely in the real world. Many have a life full of commitments and don't have a lot of time to train on the bike and don't have a lot of time to train off the bike. So we provide off the bike training. So those days you get on the bike, whether training, racing, riding, whatever it may be, will be faster and safer. And like I said today, we are going to talk more about strength training. And I think the first thing that's important to go over is that when we're racing or riding a dirt bike, there can be times where the G force is 10 times our body weight. So just certain movements in whoops, a really hard turn, we can be essentially having 10 times the force of our own body weight put on us. So it's important to be able to manage that force and manage the bike. We all know, ideally, we're trying to make sure that we're working with the machine, that we are in sync with the machine, and that we're using our body position, the brake, the gas, everything else, the clutch, to make sure that we're working together. But there are times where there's tough sections. If you're racing off road, we all know a tree root, some obstacle that's unseen throws us off balance, and we kind of have to fight the machine. In motocross, we know that a rut going up the face of a jump can be quite challenging, the way that it may pull or push you as you go up the lip, depending on what you want to do. And so while we're always trying to work with the machine, we want to be strong so that we can also counteract those unknown things that come up, those unforeseen things that come up. So strength is important. We want good endurance fibers in our body for strength, but we also want to make sure that we are prepared for the unknown of what's going to happen as well. Those imperfect moments, and strength will help get us there. And with that, there are a lot of ways to do strength training. We can do strength training with weights, without weights, with bands. I will say from the view of a coach, in terms of a racer who may not have a gym membership, there's no wrong or right way to do it. I think what is important is that you're getting it done how you can. Some racers don't live near a gym. Some have limited equipment at their house. Some have bands. Others have access to a full gym. Others have a full gym at their house. There's no right or wrong way. There's definitely ideal tools we would have, but ultimately, you've got to be able to make it work how you can, where you can, when you can. And I think that's important with strength. We don't have to have a gym membership. We don't have to have this complete system at our house. What's important is that we're using the tools we have and using them correctly to help us build the correct muscles for our body. So now with racers, I think it's really important that we do movements that help build type 2 fibers. And these are muscles that increase time to fatigue. So high endurance muscles. Let's just kind of look at a couple of body types that we might think about or see. Maybe when you're at the gym, there's like the big bulky guy. It's got massive arms, massive pecs. I think that's all good for maybe looking that way, but that's not the way that we want to be built as a racer. As racers, we're looking to kind of have a more of a lean muscle mass. We don't need big bulky muscles. So those big bulky muscles are not type 2 fiber. They're not endurance fiber, and they're going to fatigue quickly. So if you've ever watched track, like running track, the events, if you've ever seen that on TV, or maybe when you were younger, you ran track or you have kids in track, look at the events. If we look at the shorter track events, the 100 meter, the 400 meter, those athletes tend to be quite bulky because they need powerful, explosive muscles that only need to last a couple of seconds, because the 100, the 400, those events in reality are just a couple of seconds. It's a really quick race. Now let's go to the other end of track events. We've got the 5K and the 10K. So events that last 15 minutes, 30 minutes for elite level racers. Those racers are really lean. They've got very little muscle mass, and they're quite lean. And that's what we're looking at in terms of racing motorcycles. Look at the top professional racers for basically any type of series: motocross, GNCC, enduro. For the most part, they all fit one body type, and that's a pretty lean body, because we need muscles that are that have a high resistance to fatigue. We want endurance muscles, and big bulky muscles aren't going to get us there. It's the leaner muscle that's going to be a properly built muscle and a muscle that's less likely to fatigue. So keep that in mind. When we're training as racers, we don't want to do like really heavy weights and short reps, a couple reps. We want to do kind of more of a medium or lightweight and more reps. Now, there's always an exception to every rule. And in the off season, there are times in the off season and postseason that we can kind of work on building a little bit more muscle mass and increasing the fibers that we use within a muscle by doing heavier rep and heavier reps, heavier weights and lower reps. Wow, that was tough for me to get out. But in general, in season and when we're conditioning the body, we want to go the opposite way. We want to build muscles that are really resistant to fatigue, and we do that with lighter weight, medium weight, and more reps. So that's really important. We're building endurance muscles, and it doesn't matter what type of racing you're doing. You could be racing motocross, sprint enduro, GNCC, hare scramble enduro, whatever it may be. All of those require endurance muscles because they're all an endurance event, the way the fibers are used in the body. So don't think because you're doing something that might be on the shorter scale of all those races that you need to condition the muscles differently. Essentially, the simple answer is no. You need endurance fibers, and we need to make sure that we're conditioning you with endurance fibers. Now, in terms of the type of movements we do, I'm really big on sport-specific movements. You can do various movements like push-ups or squats, and I like to keep those ones sport-specific. So, and what I mean by that is measure the width of your handlebars, measure the width of your foot pegs. When you're doing a push-up or a squat, go ahead and make sure you're doing it the same width. You're conditioning those muscles the right way. We always want variation in our training. Do narrow push-ups, wide squats, and narrow squats. But when we're doing kind of those standard two positions, a regular push-up and a regular squat, do them at the width of your bike because it's going to help develop those muscles for when we're on the bike. And ideally, I know we're all getting less seat time than we want. So the better we can condition the body off the bike, the better prepared we will be on the bike, and we'll be spending less time kind of fighting our muscles and our conditioning, and more time actually riding and racing. And then once again, like I kind of mentioned earlier, increasing our time to fatigue. So we're able to hold good form and go at the speed we want to for longer, which is ultimately what we all want. So it's important to really make sure off the bike we are training specific muscles. At Masto Fitness, we're really big on that because we all only have so much time and we're always lacking seat time. I know for me, even on a week when I get to ride maybe 2 times, which is rare for me, still in a perfect world, if I could think of how much I could ride, I would be riding more. So that's really important. Now, when we're on the bike, when you're standing in the athletic position, when you're, kind of like elbows up, standing, like that slight squatted position, balanced over the bike, kind of got the head over the handlebars, like you're ready to go. When you're in that position and you're holding that position, think about that when you're racing. What muscles get sore first? What muscles are getting so fatigued that you're forcing you to sit when you should be standing? More than likely, it's the quads, hamstrings, and glutes. And at Masto Fitness, a big way that we fight this to condition those muscles is doing wall sits. If you've ever done a wall sit, it's hard. It's not easy. But the time spent doing wall sits off the bike are always going to be more beneficial to us on the bike to help increase the endurance fibers in those muscles by holding that static position on the wall. And we do a couple variations of this to help condition the body. Sometimes we'll do an upper body movement as well, like curl or overhead press or holding a weight straight out in front of us, which is really challenging. Or when you're doing that wall sit, holding something between your knees and squeezing it. So just like you would be squeezing the bike to help not only condition the quads, hamstrings, and glutes, but also condition those adductors that you squeeze the bike with. That's so important. So wall sits are just a great one to help us improve that kind of like athletic position on the bike and help us be able to stay off the seat longer. And then at Masto Fitness, we're big on multi-joint movements. And I personally think multi-joint movements are a great way to train. And there's 2 main reasons why. So first, on the bike, we're always working muscle groups together. We're not just working one muscle group. When you're on your bike, for example, your upper body and when you're your upper body, when you're up over that bike, you're not just using your bicep or your tricep or your forearm or your shoulders or your traps, your upper back muscles. We're using all those at the same time because they're all working together to help keep us balanced over the bike and react to the terrain. And so that's how we like to train off the bike as well, as best we can, is multi-joint movements. So instead of just doing a bicep curl, which would just work your bicep, we do a bicep curl to an overhead press. So then we're working our traps, we're working our deltoids, we're working multiple muscle groups to help really develop our body and give us the best bang for buck for our time, which is number two here of the importance is it's a huge time saver to do multi-joint movements. We don't always have a ton of time to train, and we want to make the best of that time to train. So we do as much multi-joint movement as we can that's applicable for racers in the training we build for them. Another great example of this is if you go to the gym, if you have a gym membership, you could go and do a leg extension machine. You could go do a leg curl machine. So do 15 reps of leg extension, work your quadriceps. Do 15 minutes of a leg curl or 15 reps of a leg curl, work your hamstring. Or we could go over to squat rack and we could do 15 reps. And when we do a squat, we're going to work our hamstrings, our quadriceps, our glutes, our calves, our core. We're going to incorporate a lot more muscles in our body and get a better bang for our time. And the big one that I like there is when we do a squat, we're also incorporating our core, and the core ties the upper body and lower body together. So, we really always want a strong core, and doing multi-joint movements, oftentimes, especially with the lower body when standing, are going to incorporate the core. So those are a couple things that we do at Masto Fitness and that we think are important for racers. I think the big takeaways here are we want muscles that are resistant to fatigue because we are endurance racers. So we don't need to necessarily lift heavy. We want to work more on building those endurance type fibers. And then two, multi-joint. We always want to make sure when applicable, we're doing multi-joint movements for strength because it's going to help develop multiple systems. It's going to help develop our endurance. And it's going to be a best bang for our buck in terms of time. And I know if you're like me, we're always lacking time, no matter how much time we have when you're training, racing, job, family, traveling to a race, working on the bike, 6 million things. Well, let's use the best of our time that we have when we are training off the bike. And so next week, we are going to talk more about endurance training, the biking, the running, the rowing, the swimming, if you swim, kayaking, stand-up paddleboard, whatever it may be. We're going to talk about the ways that you can do those sports to help develop your muscles, or help develop your aerobic system off the bike, so then you have better endurance on the bike. And always as a reminder, if you want to give Masto Fitness a try, just send me a message on Instagram and I'll get you set up with a free week of our single jump training program. See you guys next week.